Hello, 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 everyone. This is Psychosocial. This is the social psychologist Özge Kantas, and today I am with Dr. Dan Tomasulo. Hello, Dan. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here.
Of course, I'm so grateful that you are here with us today with your new book, Learned Hopefulness, and of course, with many other amazing things you have been doing so far as a positive psychologist, as a psychodramatist, as an academic person, as a teacher, I don't know, how many roles do you have?
A lot of different roles, that's for sure.
Yeah,
For
so
sure.
I think that the hardest question in the world is the question, who are you or who am
Mhm.
I? Like with many roles that we have. So instead of introducing you to our listeners, can I invite you? Which roles are you here? So, which Dan are we with today?
What a lovely way to start the interview, right? Yeah, just terrific. Well, you know what's interesting? I think I would have answered in times gone by about a different role. I'm a teacher, I'm a healer, or I'm an artist or a writer or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've learned in the last couple of years that I'm probably better introducing myself as a collection of my character strengths. The
Mm.
character strengths have been so powerful in terms of psychology and helping people understand more about what they bring to the table. So I'll just share my top, or what's called signature strengths, for people who don't know about that. There's something called the viacharacter.org. It's a survey of your character strengths,
Uh-huh.
and they do better than intelligence or skill in terms of predicting how well you're going to do in life. And everybody's got a unique group of top ones. And so my top strengths are creativity, humor, perspective, gratitude, and hope is in there now.
Yeah.
Hope has moved up in there, and zest.
Wow.
So those are that's my special potato salad I bring to the party.
Amazing, amazing. And I took this character strength survey in one of your workshops. So
Yeah,
here I am with my love of learning, curiosity,
there it is. Right,
appreciation of the beauty, and yeah, what was that? Kindness. Yeah, those were mine.
kindness.
Yeah.
Of course, kindness would be yours. Yes.
Well, thanks for this amazing and unique personal introduction of yourself. And because we are more than our job titles or like academic titles whatsoever, so thanks for being truly yourself here and this authentic introduction of yours. So then mostly we know you from your many other roles, that you have many other potato salads, and I know 30 minutes will not be enough of talking all of them, but lately we have been seeing you and learning a lot from you in terms of hope.
Yes. Yeah.
So it is one of your signature research areas as well, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I think what happened, I was very lucky. About 10 years ago, I had decided to go back to school, and
Mm.
I was very, very lucky to get into the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology program at the
Mhm.
University of Pennsylvania. And come to find out that Marty Seligman, who runs that program, really wasn't interested in having psychologists in the program. He
Mhm.
wanted them to do research. And I come to find out that I was the first psychodramatist and psychologist, who had both those skills to go
Mhm.
into the program. And so after I was there for about a week, I asked him, I said, why me? He said, well, you're not a normal psychologist. so so I think that was good. I'm not sure, but that really was a time when I started to learn about positive psychology. And
Mhm.
then right after I graduated, Marty was very, very kind and invited me to join the faculty there as his assistant in the program. So I've been his assistant for about 10 years now. And a few years ago, his memoir came out, and he invited about 40 of us to a special lecture where they did the follow-up to learned helplessness.
Ah,
And
that
it was a
famous study.
famous study where they were able to prove that the dogs that were in a helpless situation in one environment seemed to have learned helplessness in a new environment, even when it was clear that they could get away from shocks or not be helpless. They acted that way. Anyway, it was a 50-year follow-up. They've been studying this for 50 years. And he brought in his graduate school roommate that discovered it with him, Steve Mayer. And I remember being at that lecture because they said right away, right in the beginning, that they got the theory completely wrong. And here's a theory that came out in the mid 70s,
70s.
right? And it was based on research from the late 60s, mid 70s, that changed the world in terms of how we thought of depression. That when people would struggle and try and then, not feel they had control, that they would somehow give up, get depressed. It became the model of depression because then in other situations, they acted as if they were depressed and didn't do anything. And he said, we got the theory completely wrong. And showed that now, since that was 60s and 70s, they didn't have fMRIs and all this stuff in the brain. So what they were able to do is they were able to show that there's actually a circuit in the brain that turns on and off when we're exposed to chronic aversive stimuli. So there was no learning involved. See, they thought it was learned behavior back then, that they would learn it in one situation and then carry it forward in the other. But really what was happening is that there was a mechanism in the brain that was getting literally switched so that you would stop responding to conserve energy. If your brain figures out, listen, don't work too hard here because you can't change anything, it'll shut down. And what they realized is that it was an evolutionary response. And I remember being at this lecture and just saying, oh my God, these two guys are fantastic because they discovered something that changed the world. Then they discovered that it was wrong. It'd be one thing if somebody else criticized it, but they did it. And the name of that loop in the brain is called the Hope Circuit. And I remember being in that lecture, listening to this, because it changed everything. Because instead of unlearning something from the past that you had learned, they found out that it was, about a third of the dogs in the original studies didn't get depressed. They didn't shut down. They somehow knew they were in a new situation. And what this new research showed is that it's how they think of the future.
They were preserving themselves.
That's exactly right. They were just waiting for the right moment. And so this has to do with expectation. It had to do with your assessment, your risk assessment of, can I control something in the future? And I remember when they were, they were talking and they're drawing stuff on the board and showing the dorsal raphe nucleus and all the parts of the brain that are involved with this loop. And I was like, oh my God, this changes everything.
Yeah.
Because it means that if we can train ourselves to believe we have control in the future and look for that control in the future, make that kind of an assessment, we can pull ourselves out of a depression. And that's what the book Learned Hopefulness came from. I started researching all the work on hope and hope theory, and come to find out there was a lot of good information about how we can stimulate and activate hope.
Such an empowering and transforming research-based evidence or evidence-based research, you name it. So,
right.
So, can I ask then, what is your calling? What is your hope in terms of writing a book about hope? Because the traditional, the mainstream depression perspective, the illness, sickness perspective sounds like not correct in that sense. So what is your calling? What is your hope out of that learned hopefulness?
I think the thing that turned me on when I went to that program at UPenn, I was really not in a good place. I had gone through a divorce that left me sort of bewildered and not myself, and I couldn't quite snap out of it. I felt depressed beyond just having the blues. And a friend of mine was becoming a positive psychologist, and it got me interested in it. And when I started to look at the research and the interventions, I was really kind of fascinated with the idea that, oh my goodness, these are all new tools now. Most of psychology has been about alleviating suffering, but these tools were about really trying to craft and build well-being. So I tried some of them, and it was the only thing that really worked and helped me feel better and function better and all that kind of stuff. And then somewhere along the line, I think I was at a lecture with Barbara Fredrickson and learning about her work. And she had mentioned that she's studying positive emotions, and sort of mentioned parenthetically that hope is the only positive emotion that required negativity or uncertainty to be activated.
Oh, yeah.
And that really, boom, that really woke me up. It was sort of like, oh my goodness. What I've lived through, what I help other people live through as a therapist, what I studied in psychodrama, what I've been writing about really was transformation. How do people transform? And so that, again, really sort of pulled me in, because I had the experience of feeling terribly uncertain and very negative. And then, finding ways to shift that. So I thought I was in a good position to look at the research because I had the experience.
And I think the book came out in the right, perfect, amazing time in the middle of the pandemic, like where, for example, the New York State Office of Mental Health popped up with the campaign, the social campaign called Hope is Not Cancelled. And like, I have my Turkish roots. I'm still doing projects with my Turkish background. So with the World Human Relief, we carried out a project in Turkey, Hope is for Everyone. So we created contents that promote hopefulness. And yes, in the middle of the pandemic, which is ambiguous, which is negative, which is
that's right. Right.
which includes all the negativity that can happen, like worldwide, not just that those just not apply to me or to you or to some cultures or some other religions. So it applies to everyone, all the world. We are locked up. So what else we could need more? Hope, of course.
It was, when you write a book, you're always in the place of, say, gee, I hope it does well. And, but I was actually pretty stunned because it made its debut in Amazon, and it was the top-selling new release. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then I realized there's something here that people really need. And so I had been working toward that. And that actually made me aware that there may be something more divine happening here. I have whatever my journey is, but then to see that people really, it's happening at the right time. Well, I couldn't plan that or know about that or anything. So you start thinking that, oh, all right, there's something, way beyond us that's coordinating these things. And I've been very appreciative of that part.
And what is critical throughout the book is I highlighted, I don't know how many times, the same exact sentence. You say, hope is a verb. Yes. And it is through action. I think the thinking about the toxic positivity that many people take from the positive psychology changes at that time in this point, because the teachings of positive psychology, the results, the research about positive psychology can be very misunderstood, as if just focusing on the positive things and ignoring what is negative. Just don't in the intellectual level, it is just mere words for people, mere thoughts for people, and people get upset, people get angry, and people get resentful for those positive psychology information, because without knowing how to do them, it doesn't seem like doable or feasible. Like, let's say, show self-compassion to yourself, but how? And then this is the turning point. Or be hopeful, okay, but how? And the book is a great source for how to turn those findings, those amazing research-based the techniques, as real intervention that people can sit down and do by themselves, with empty chairs, with papers, with pencils, with drawings, with even like stones or pebbles around them, so that they can play around their hopefulness. And that really hits me. Hope is a verb, and this is through action. And I will give credit to your amazing combination of psychodrama and positive psychology background for that, because this is transforming. Action is transforming in that sense. Do you get similar feedbacks from who read the book in terms of the action-oriented aspect of that?
You know, and thank you for that way of describing it. I think you hit that perfectly. But you know, this idea that we need to somehow have interventions that are beyond paper and pencil. Of course, those are really good ways, but other ways where we can deepen the experience. And you know, after my time at Penn, Marty had recommended me for a job over at Columbia to design a course in positive psychology and another one in optimal well-being. And I started to work with the folks over there, and Dr. Lisa Miller, who's the founder of the Spirituality Mind Body Institute. And one of the things that happened right away, you know, I was a little nervous going in, so the reading list for the poor students the first semester, I think, almost had them faint. But I wanted to make sure that they were well grounded in the material. But for the class time, all our class time was, you know, a discussion of the material, but then very heavily relying on experiential features. So my background in psychodrama really lent itself to not just unlocking the pain of traumas and difficulties, but using the same techniques to unlock and harvest positive emotions. One of the things that I realized is that as psychodramatists, our training was very rich with technique and unlocking that pain. But I saw such an opportunity for us to use those very powerful tools to awaken maybe some dormant feelings or not fully expressed feelings, even something as simple as gratitude or self-compassion. Once we put that into action, something happens because people are moved. You know, every semester, my dear friends, Dan Lerner and Alan Schlechter run a course at NYU called The Science of Happiness. And every semester they have me come in and do what I call a virtual gratitude visit, where there's an empty chair and you express gratitude to someone who's no longer with you very often. It's somebody who's moved away or passed on. It could be somebody in your life right now, but people typically choose someone that they didn't get a chance to express gratitude. And there's 500 students in this course. It's this huge amphitheater. And someone had come to see me do this demonstration, but they were late. And I was already doing it. And I'm in the middle on the stage working with a protagonist with an empty chair. And this woman is on stage and she is crying deeply while she's doing this extremely positive thing because it's a catharsis of integration. And I could hear it clear as a bell. This guy comes in the back door and he goes, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I thought this was positive psychology," because everybody is crying in the class and people are going, "It is positive psychology." So that's the other thing too, that I think the experimenting with these techniques opens up a door that allows us to integrate positive emotions into our well-being in a new way, really. And Moreno's work and a lot of the work of psychodramatists has been to help people alleviate the suffering and unlock the pain. And I think we've done that rather well. And now what we want to do is add on to that the skill of how do you stay balanced? One of the things in doing research for the book, found that 80% of people with depression relapse.
Oh yeah.
And so most of psychology has been studying the 80%. In positive psychology, we study the 20%. What keeps people from relapsing? And you find out that they're engaged in something that keeps the positive emotions flourishing, that they thrive when they're activated. And so these techniques are targeted toward that.
So it is amazing that instead of just working off getting rid of the symptoms, like instead of a symptom relief, it's such a action-oriented intervention based on evidence, research.
Yeah.
So that it is not merely getting rid of those symptoms, but really blossoming, like again, blossoming and stay away from that circle of depression loop. This is something very reformative in terms of even in mental health, like because mental health crisis is about those relapses in a way, and how it is considered as incurable, uncurable, and how it is like a burden on people,
yes,
societies, economy, work life, innovation, on everything and on every level, in schooling, education, law. So in many layers, this loop has its negative implications, whereas when we focus on that thriving part instead of the surviving part, we have much more room to grow. We have much more things to do. So, yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I have the quote in there. Thich Nhat Hanh certainly says it, and it's a Buddhist quote. But no mud, no lotus.
Mm-hmm.
And when you extract the power behind that quote, you recognize that a lot of the things that are uncertain in our life or negative in our life become the seeds that yield really positive fruit downstream. So the work is to figure out, okay, what kind of nutrients can we get from negative experiences or difficult experiences? What is the learning capacity here? And the researchers was really very cool because different people studied it for different reasons. So the business people would look at something known as psychological capital.
Mm-hmm.
The physicians would look at it in terms of support and cure rates. But if you take a look at what everybody was doing, they were all talking about a different kind of transformation. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of took that and put that idea into some very workable interventions to help people feel the power of transformation.
Yeah, so this brings us to a point that whatever you write in this book, in its every aspects are doable in many different domains of human life, such as psychotherapy, such as coaching, in business life, in education, in pretty much many other more settings as well. Everyone have their like ingredients from the mud and can
right.
grow out of that. So the symptoms, the problems becomes the what can we call it, the assets of
right
growing further. So yeah, this is amazing. And I have one more question about your personal experience of, other than what you do, other than your own projects, What is the best other project that you witnessed so far? This can be a social responsibility project. This can be a business project, school project, or like mental health project. Who else do you think, or what else do you think people utilize positive psychology in an action-oriented way with a like hopefulness, implementing that hopefulness to growing forward?
Mhm.
Any
The
examples that you can give us?
Yeah, again, I've just been very, very lucky. In September, I'll become the academic director of the Spirituality Mind Body Institute, and in that position, I'm able to see more of the research that's happening, that sort of straddles this world between positive psychology, spiritual growth, business, leadership. There's so many ways that it can go. And one of the things I'm working on right now with a researcher up in UMass, and she's terrific. She's a qualitative researcher, and we've been working on reviving an ancient breathing technique that we've done some preliminary investigation of, that we've modified it, we've stripped it down, and we have this technique that doesn't use words to describe anxiety or pain. It uses imagery, a particular kind of imagery. And what we are finding is that it's a 3-minute exercise. And the people who go through this have very quick release and very quick transformation of very specific anxieties. And so what we're hopeful of is, we're hoping to launch this in the fall, to get a larger scale study with it. But what we want is to have these very quick ways that people can break the negative thought process. And Karen is the researcher, Warenberry, and she's a researcher that works in a variety of different environments, from business and coaching and faculty, and I work in mental health and therapy. So we're hoping that this particular technique will be very useful to people who get stuck with rumination. They get stuck with negative thoughts, and this is specifically designed to undo that in a very brief way. And like I said, the pilot stuff seems very good.
Oh, sounds exciting and novel, and at the same time very historical.
Yeah. That's right. We get you go back and you find all the ancient stuff was real. They hit the nail on the head. We're just updating it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So until people, if there's anyone left who didn't read your book yet, who haven't read your book,
until probably a couple.
The Learned Hopefulness book. Until they read your book, what would be your next best suggestion for them? The book is the best suggestion. So
yeah, that's right. The book is the best suggestion. Well, there's a thing I have that. So I'll share a few things from this. I have broken up the interventions into something called the 21-day Hope Challenge. So there are 7 that deal with the past, 7 that deal with the present, and 7 that deal with the future.
Wow.
And these are all evidence-based approaches, but I put them in this collection because I find that people get stuck in the past. Sometimes, with things like the lack of forgiveness, as an example, or there's positive things in the past that they haven't been able to harvest yet. And then there's, the difficulty of staying present and finding rich ways to enhance that. And then, some of the stuff about hope and optimism and faith and intention. How is it that we can activate them? So let me give you three very one each from the past, present, and the future.
Yay! Great.
Right. So the past one, I think, is one of the greatest ways to activate positive emotions, because they already have happened in our life, and we're going back and retrieving them. So I invite people to do a gratitude review of the last 24 to 36 hours and write down three things that you've had gratitude for. Because what happens is, as we're living our day, something good happens, we'll acknowledge it, but we don't take the time to savor it or enhance it. So when we go back and retrieve it and recall it in this way, what we're doing is not manufacturing something, but highlighting something that's already there. So it's very accessible. And if you get yourself into that habit, you're constantly activating positive emotions. And the research shows, by the way, when you do that, you have a slightly more optimistic outlook of the future when you keep looking at all the gratitudes that are in your past. So the first one is to do a gratitude review. In the present moment, the most powerful thing that you can do is to be kind to other people. And there's a whole bunch of ways that is important in terms of the immediate moment. But my students, when they take my class, they have to do 5 acts of kindness in one day. They pick one day a week and they do 5 acts of kindness. And again, research shows you your awareness gets peaked on that day, but it actually brings it up all the way around. Doesn't mean you can't be kind on a Tuesday if your day is Thursday, but it does mean you get pulled into the moment. And it's not just about doing kind things, but it's also about noticing or acknowledging it. Because if you look around, you start spotting it, and that brings you into the moment in a different way. And then the last one,
the third one,
is for the future, and that I call micro goals. And the micro goals, one of the things that happens and has happened now because of COVID-19, and that people's long-term planning has really taken a hit. And what happens is, if our plans for something in the future are dashed, we will often will certainly be disappointed, but then that disappointment seems to open up a downward spiral, because people say, geez, I didn't get this, I didn't get that. They don't feel good about setting other goals. Well, with micro goals, you bring it very close in front of you. 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm going to return these 3 emails in the next 20 minutes. I'm going to clean this drawer, or this part of the room, or this closet.
Not the entire house.
Yeah, not the entire house. That's right. It's too big. It's too big. And what happens is, when you set very small micro goals, you get, it's something we call bidirectional. It means you get motivated to do something, but the accomplishment of that then comes back and fuels you to want to do another something. So the micro goals become a way that you start anticipating the future and getting control over the future, believing you have control in the future, which is where hope resides.
Wow, doable, yeah.
Doable, very doable, very doable.
Thank you. Well, yeah, that these are really, people need to be just self-reliant to do those. So it gives that autonomy and the competency to do so, instead of just waiting some other circumstances to happen. So yeah, doable. Good, great. Thank you very much. So, well, dear listeners, until you get Dan's book, if you haven't, these are the 3 things that you can do immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks for that. So let's do the closing in a psychodramatic way as well.
Sure. Sounds great. Sounds great.
If you were me, if we reverse the roles, What else would you ask to yourself that I haven't asked?
I think I would ask, how do you use this in your life, in a way that really helps sustain the feeling of positivity?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's roll reverse and I can
Yeah.
ask this to you. How do you use and utilize those things in your own like personal life to keep and sustain your positivity and hopefulness?
Well, first of all, that was a magnificent question. No, I think what's important about that is that you learn to hunt the good. You wake up with this idea of what can I do with what I'm feeling, and how do I move it forward? To learn to move toward conflict, not away from it. To start developing an attitude that the harder I work, the luckier I get. That if I do my part, the universe will do its part. The spirit will move you, and so it's not a one-off thing. It's not like trying, in the morning or in the afternoon, in the evening. It's cultivating a sense that if I can stay ready, and Moreno really talked about this. Can I really cultivate and train spontaneity so that I'm ready for the next thing? Because that's really what hopeful people do. They don't know what's coming either, but they know they're going to be ready.
Oh, wow, such a last word. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you gave us the chance to sit down and chat and learn and discuss more about this hopefulness and positive psychology. And I am deeply moved by reading the book. I feel so lucky to be your student in your workshop. So these are something else to me in personally in my personal life, not only in my professional life. So I am so happy to be with you today. And dear Dr. Dan Tomasulo, we don't know when next we will be sit down and talk and do something else, but I'm accepting what's coming.
Exactly. There you go. You'll be ready for it. You'll be ready.
I do
great.
my part.
Thank you.
The universe will
That's
do
right. Universe will do its part. That's right.
Okay. Thank you very much. And have a hopeful and great days.
Thank you so much.